On today's episode of The Franchise, today's Monday, January 30th. In this episode, we're going to recap the NFC and AFC Conference Championship games as the Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs are heading to the Super Bowl. We're going to recap both of those games from Sunday and take a deep dive into them. And we'll take a slight look ahead to the Super Bowl, which is in a few weeks. We won't give out a pick or game preview, anything like that yet. We're just going to recap the conference championship games from Sunday. Before we get into it, as always, franchise available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Link in the description to the website, Instagram, TikTok, all of that stuff down below in every single episode. Let's start with the NFC Conference Championship game between the San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles. Heading into the game, I think the expectation was from a lot of people, in the sports world, was that this was going to be a very, very competitive and close game. You're looking at the San Francisco 49ers team. They're arguably the best defense in the entire NFL and one of the best remaining in the playoffs. Playing against Seattle, they shut them down. They did not allow Seattle to have any chance in the wild card game. You look at them playing against the Cowboys, they locked them up, forced multiple turnovers on Dak Prescott and that entire Cowboys offense. So throughout the regular season, they were amazing, and against the two previous opponents in these playoffs, their defense was just as good. And then on the other side of the ball, offensively, the story was Brock Purdy, right? The last pick in the NFL draft, Mr. Irrelevant, the guy who had to step in for Jimmy Garoppolo first after the Trey Lance injury and then the Jimmy Garoppolo injury. To have your third string quarterback come in and up to the game on Sunday, go 7-0 as a starter, the last pick in the draft, a guy that no one expected to be in this position, to go 7-0 and to have your offense improved under Brock Purdy was incredible. The Niners offense improved every single game that Brock Purdy started for them at quarterback. And with all of the weapons that they have on that offensive side of the ball, the 49ers were looking to really match up well against a Philadelphia Eagles team that has the best offensive line in the NFL, has one of the best running games in the entire league as well, and defensively is just as good as San Francisco. So this was supposed to be a very evenly matched game. It's supposed to be one of the best games of the entire NFL season. But what happened in this game to take the Eagles a 31-7 blowout win at home? I think the easiest thing to point to is Brock Purdy getting injured. In his first drive, gets pressure comes from his right. As he goes to throw the ball, gets hit, elbows kind of snaps back, and he fumbles the football at that point. He's out for basically the rest of the game. He can't. There's like some nerve damage, is what they said, in his elbow. So Brock Purdy's injury is really what set the 49ers back in this game. They have to bring in Joe Johnson, a 13-year veteran at quarterback, their fourth quarterback on the season. He comes in 7 of 13 for 74 yards in the game, and then he gets knocked out of the game with a concussion. So what do the 49ers do now? They have to bring back in Brock Purdy, who can't throw the football, or you have to have Christian McCaffrey or Kyle Juszczyk play wildcat quarterback. Purdy comes in. Up to his injury, he had 2 completed passes. When he came back in after the concussion of Johnson, he had 2 more passes. And at that point, they're down 3 scores, going on to more. Right? They're going to be down more at this point. But going in, it's 28-7. And there's just no possible way this 49ers team can win this football game because Purdy can't throw the ball. And you're down multiple scores, and your only option is to run the football. And you cannot win the game when you're running the football in the fourth quarter down multiple scores. Right? Because running the football takes time off of the clock. And unless you're getting these one-play burst, 95-yard runs from Christian McCaffrey, there's no way you're winning the football game. So the 49ers, without Brock Purdy, completely collapsed. And, he was the glue holding this team together. With Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance going out, He was the only possible guy that could take this team to where they were. And if he played this game, the entirety of the game, who knows what it could have been like. It could have been a much closer game. San Francisco could be in the Super Bowl. We could have the exact same result that we had in this game. For the Eagles, they played amazing. First of all, they took advantage of Brock Purdy being out. And even with him in that first drive, they brought pressure. I mean, they were the ones to take him out of the game. Like, obviously that's not their intention, right? They didn't want to injure Brock Purdy, but they brought pressure from that defensive line, Reddick and Cox, and that whole defensive line as a collective unit brought pressure through that 49ers offensive line and to Brock Purdy and Joe Johnson at quarterback. They were able to lock them down. I think Hassan Reddick had one of the best games, not only against the Giants the previous week, but this most recent game against the 49ers. He was amazing on that outside edge. He was unblocked on multiple rushing attempts at the quarterback, just completely forgotten about on that outside. So he was one of the big reasons that they were able to step up on defense. Darius Slay, a lot of the guys on the defensive unit, I'm forgetting a few of their names right now, I apologize. But that defense played amazing, right? Only allowing the 49ers to have 7 points. Now, yes, the quarterback injury, right? But they still shut them down. They still had Christian McCaffrey. And even when Purdy went down, it was a 7-0 game, Philadelphia. It was very early, very close. The game was not over when Brock Purdy went injured. And then Christian McCaffrey gets that big touchdown run, and it's a tie game. So the 49ers were still in it with Purdy being out, and the Eagles' defense just allowed or just shut down the possibility of the 49ers competing in this game. Offensively for the Eagles, they played pretty good. Right, 4 rushing touchdowns on the day. Gainwell, 14 carries, 48 yards. Sanders with 2 touchdowns. Hurt with a touchdown, and Scott with a touchdown. Hurts passing only had 121 yards passing on the day. You can tell that his shoulder injury is still definitely bothering him. Right, he said before the game that he's not even 100%, and you could see that in the game on Sunday. Right, you're looking multiple overthrown balls to A.J. Brown and other receivers on the team, and then even his short passes were severely underthrown. A.J. Brown caught one on his shoestrings, right? That was a severely underthrown ball, but it was also a lot of pressure brought by that San Francisco defense. But they did enough. The Niners defense kept them in at some points during the game, especially in that first half, but the second half blew the gates open. The running game for Philadelphia exploded. And I think this little break here before the Super Bowl is going to be very important for the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, right? We'll talk about this later on as we get closer to the Super Bowl. But Jalen Hurts needs to get more healthy because that running game is amazing. But when Jalen Hurts is also able to pass for 200-plus yards and be a threat with his arm as well as with his legs, the Eagles are really, really unbeatable. And they've blown out every opponent that they've played in these playoffs, right? The Giants and the 49ers. So they're not struggling on any part of the ball. If Jalen Hurts can improve his passing game and get healthy before the game against the Chiefs, they will be set up very, very nice. But I'm not even trying to give my prediction or anything yet for the Super Bowl. So for the 49ers, I'm not going to do I'll look at a few things here. First of all, they had 11 penalties in this game. Something I forgot to mention. Their defense was getting penalized heavily. The Eagles had 4. Early in the game, Devontae Smith made one of the greatest catches ever. Wasn't reviewed because the camera angle that showed him not catching the football was not shown until the commercial break after they scored the touchdown. So they couldn't even review the play. Devontae Smith didn't end up catching the ball, so you could already possibly take a touchdown off of the board there. Or you could already take that touchdown off the board. That was a 4th down conversion to Devontae Smith. That was a catch, wasn't a catch, wouldn't have resulted in a touchdown. So you can already take a touchdown off the board there. San Francisco had 3 turnovers, 22 minutes of possession. Philadelphia had 37. Like I said, San Francisco had 11 penalties in this game. All around, I think the Purdy injury, Purdy being out, really changed the whole dynamic and atmosphere around the 49ers team. And then with Johnson going out and then them really having no option at quarterback, I think that was really when the game was over and San Francisco lost the game. Once Johnson went out and the question of quarterback was who the heck is going to throw the football, I think that is when the Philadelphia Eagles won the game and the Niners officially eliminated themselves from the game. But yeah, taking a look in the offseason, I mean, not a deep dive here. We'll do that a little bit later once the season's over. But San Francisco, lucky for them, they don't have many big free agents this offseason. I mean, Jimmy Ward, their free safety, is probably their biggest free agent right now, around $15 million in cap space. The biggest question for San Francisco is going to be the quarterback position, right? Trey Lance, the number 3 overall pick a few years ago, got injured earlier on in the season. He was out for the entire year. Jimmy Garoppolo stepped in as the starter, has been the starter for San Francisco for many years, right? Led them to a Super Bowl against the Chiefs in 2019. He got hurt. Brock Purdy, 7-0 as 7-1, I guess, now as a starter, led the Niners to an NFC Championship game and improved their team offensively. So the question is, which of those guys is going to be the quarterback next season? I think you can automatically cross Jimmy Garoppolo off the list. I don't think he'll be returning to the 49ers next season because with the emergence of Purdy, you have 2 quarterbacks that are vying for the starting spot in Lance and Brock Purdy. I think the Niners next season and through the offseason, we'll be looking at which of those 2 guys will be starting for us. And I think the other one will be the backup because both of these guys have been injured, right? So which one, we want to keep both of them. Which one will be the starter? I think it's either Purdy or Lance. They're already starting the conversation, the narrative that Tom Brady will be going to the Niners. I'm not buying that. I don't think they're going to sit Purdy or Lance a year just for Tom Brady to come in and potentially win them a Super Bowl when you can just develop Purdy and Lance again, when you already have basically the entire same team coming back next season for San Francisco. So the Eagles moving on to the Super Bowl. Let's take a look at the other game, though. Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Cincinnati Bengals at home. Chiefs' 5th straight AFC Championship game appearance at home under Patrick Mahomes. Chiefs win this game 23-20. Mahomes had another amazing game. This is basically an average game for Patrick Mahomes at this point. This stat line seems like the Patrick Mahomes special, right? This is the game that he's basically going to put up at worst. This is Patrick Mahomes' game every single week he plays. 29 of 43 passing, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns. For Joe Burrow and the Bengals, 26 of 41, 270 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Cincinnati only had 17 carries for 71 yards and 1 touchdown rushing in this entire game. They did not run the football at all. Kansas City, Pacheco, 10 carries, 26 yards. Rushing game was not a factor really for either of these 2 teams. For Cincinnati, we'll look at their receivers first. T. Higgins, 6 receptions, 83 yards, 1 touchdown. Jamar Chase, 6 receptions, 75 yards. For the Chiefs, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, 6 receptions, 116 yards and a touchdown. And Travis Kelce, 7 catches, 78 yards and a touchdown. The big story for this game that a lot of people are pointing out is the officiating in this game. All right. There is conversation right after the Eagles game. Not as many calls in the Eagles game that are being talked about compared to this Bengals and Chiefs game. But the conversation is that the NFL is extremely severely rigged. And that the refs were on the side of the Chiefs in this game. And I'll point through right now some of the plays that are being talked about. First of all, the 3rd and 9 that was replayed because the clock started early. The referees gifted the Chiefs another 3rd and 9 after they failed to convert and were about to punt the football. The referees come out and say, oh, the clock ran early, redo 3rd and 9. Now, Cincinnati stops the Chiefs on that replay of 3rd and 9, but then Eli Apple gets called for a penalty, so an automatic first down for the Chiefs. The Chiefs don't score. They don't capitalize on anything on this drive. But the Bengals get worse field position on the punt. Cincinnati, when they're on offense, missed roughing the passer call on Frank Clark when he hit Joe Burrow. If you're going to call some of these hits that are way less severe hits on quarterbacks, if you're going to call those roughing the passer, the hit that Frank Clark had on Joe Burrow, which was kind of a late hit, I think should have been called a roughing the passer. Then you're looking at Joe Burrow targeting Samaje Perine, and that was an intentional grounding call when Perine was clearly in the area. The ball was clearly thrown in the area of Perine. Call that intentional grounding. And then on the Sky Moore punt return at the very, very end of the game, you're looking at a missed block in the back call on the Chiefs. And then the biggest one, I mean, people are pointing out the roughing the passer call at the end of the game, right, where Mahomes is running out of bounds and number 58 pushes Mahomes when he's 2 steps on the sideline. That's not a bad call. I mean, that's a right call. Mahomes was 2 steps out of bounds, right? Obviously, he's pushing him in the play. He obviously didn't see that he was 2 steps out of bounds when he pushed him. But the Chiefs O-line had 2 missed holding calls on that play. Right, there's 2 holding calls. The first one offsets the penalty of roughing the passer. So you're looking at no positive or negative gain on the penalty. And then the second one's going to set the Chiefs back 15 yards. So yes, there was multiple missed penalties and multiple bad calls against Cincinnati. But Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs did win this game. They did. The game was not rigged towards them. Right, a 23-20 win. Looking at the play-by-play for both of these teams, Cincinnati started the game off with a punt, followed by another punt, then a field goal. Looking at Kansas City, field goal, touchdown. Cincinnati in this game offensively just didn't get started early. You look at last week against the Buffalo Bills, they got started off hot. 2 touchdowns to start the game for the Bengals. In this game against the Chiefs, they could not get started offensively. The Chiefs defense played great. Give them credit. They played amazing. Chris Jones, first career playoff sack in this game. Frank Clark played great. The whole defensive unit collectively played amazing while missing multiple guys on both sides of the ball. Multiple rookie corners starting for the Chiefs in this game. They were down multiple starting wide receivers. Mahomes was on one ankle. Kelsey was a game-time decision to even play in this game, and he popped off, did a normal, standard Travis Kelsey type game. So the Chiefs played great in this game. Mahomes proved why he's the best quarterback in the entire league and why he might be, at some point later down the road, the greatest quarterback of all time. And he's clearly the best quarterback in the NFL right now. I mean, the gap between him and, in my opinion, the second best quarterback in the league is Joe Burrow. I think the gap between him and Burrow is about as big as it can get. I think it's massive. It's Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Herbert, all of the other guys, and then there's obviously bigger gaps as you get further down the quarterback hierarchy. But the gap between Mahomes at 1 and the next nearest guy, whether it's Allen, Burrow, Herbert, whoever you want to put at that number 2 spot, is massive. Mahomes has the ability on one leg, right, in this game on one leg, to extend plays, to find guys open down the field and get the ball there as quickly as possible. He avoids sacks. He doesn't turn the ball over, right? Mahomes is the perfect quarterback. I mean, he's tall, he's fast, he's mobile, he has the arm strength, some of the best arm strength in the league, his vision. Mahomes is the perfect quarterback build in the league. He's the best quarterback in the game right now, and he single-handedly won them this game. Right? How many times in the postseason and in the regular season have the Chiefs been tied or been down with under a minute, under 30 seconds in the fourth quarter, and Mahomes leads a game-winning drive down the field? Whether it results in a touchdown or a field goal, Mahomes gets them down the field in position to win the game. He did that yesterday Against the Bengals, obviously getting the roughing the passer call and the big punt return from Sky Moore definitely helped the Chiefs win the game. But then you're looking last year against the Bills, leads the drive down the field with like 7 seconds left on the clock, finds Kelsey, finds another receiver, and then a field goal wins the game. Mahomes is the only guy in the league that with 5 seconds on the clock can win you a game when he's down on your own 25-yard line. So he won them this game. The Bengals did not play great, right? What they need to do in the offseason is they need to address the offensive line. Joe Burrow was sacked multiple times in this game, was sacked 1 million times throughout the entire regular season. I think one thing that wasn't being talked about enough heading into the game was the offensive line for the Bengals. They were missing 2 starters heading into the game, and it just wasn't being talked about. The only thing that was being discussed was Mahomes' ankle injury, which rightfully so. I mean, the best quarterback in the league is really playing on one leg. How will he play in this game? How will his ankle fare? The answer is it didn't matter at all. Mahomes played great, but the offensive line for the Bengals, missing 2 starters, those guys being injured, definitely hurt them in this game. But they need to go out there in the offseason, with them having $49 million, probably near $50 million in cap space in the offseason, they need to go out there and they need to address the offensive line. And for Burrow, he did have 2 interceptions in this game. The first one was a horrible pass, right? The interception to Watson, lobs that ball up, and Watson just jumps in front of T. Higgins and intercepts that football. The second one was great defense, tipped out and then caught by the other corner out there. Great defense by the Chiefs on that one. Kansas City had 4 penalties go against them. Cincinnati had 9. So the Chiefs move on to the Super Bowl. We're looking at a Kelsey Super Bowl, an Andy Reid Super Bowl, a Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl in Arizona on February 12th. It does suck that we have to wait an entire week. There's no football this week. I mean, there's the Pro Bowl, but I don't know who watches the Pro Bowl because the Pro Bowl is boring. They don't even play the game anymore. It's just a bunch of dodgeball and skill challenges. So, yeah, we do have to wait a week for the Super Bowl. I'll give my Super Bowl pick and game preview the Friday before the Super Bowl. All right, we're not doing anything Super Bowl related this week on the podcast. It's going to be a lot of baseball, basketball. We'll take a look. NFL awards, I think, are announced later this week. We'll go through, maybe even start the top 10s at certain positions in the NFL. But yeah, that is the recap for NFL Championship Weekend, AFC, NFC, as we finally know who the 2 teams are that will be playing in the Super Bowl 50, 57, 56 in Arizona. I don't know my Roman numerals, so that's why I don't know what number Super Bowl is. I think it's 57. Last year was 56, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, we'll be back tomorrow, another episode of The Franchise. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys later.